welcome to this conversation. I'm so excited today to be talking to Evelyn, who you will get introduced to in a moment. But we're going to do a three-part series talking all about retreats. And this first topic, we've titled it Why Retreats? Why Now? What It Really Takes. And Evelyn and I have talked a number of times, and every time we do, there's just so much overlap in terms of our perspective, our values, our philosophy. And we're looking forward to working together on a number of different projects over the next few years. And so we thought it might be helpful to have this conversation in public. So Evelyn, do you want to get us started? Introduce us. Who are you? What do you do? And what's the work that you do out in the world?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm Evelyn Johnson, and the work that I do is I curate retreats in Europe. So retreats abroad for coaches, leaders who want to bring their communities abroad on a really unique experience and have a great community and a profitable retreat abroad.
I
And
love
I'll
that.
just add that a little bit about my background. So I am from the US, but I've been living in Spain for 9 years. I come from a musical background, and so I'm also still a professional singer. That's still part of the work that I do. I sing classical music, and that's still a big part of my life. And have two little kiddos, and here we are, going on 10 years in Spain.
10 years in Spain. And now it's beautiful because you're inviting other people to come to Europe, especially Spain, but Europe in general, and you're on site. So you are there on the ground, you know the places that you're taking people, which just adds such a different part of the support to it. So just in case you're new to me, I'm a group program architect. And so I work with people, consultants, coaches, authors, experts to help them design and lead informative, transformative, and profitable small group programs. And so the reason why Evelyn and I started having conversations and said, hey, we should probably do this in public is one of the things that I'm really interested in and really believe in the power of is groups that include an in-person component. So that the retreat, whether that be at the beginning, the middle, or the end of the program, is part of how do you get people to really connect and how do you get them out of their day-to-day life so that they are actually doing the transformation and having those experiences. And so Evelyn was such a great contact to have as I was kind of working that through, because one of my programs will definitely be in Spain. So there's that part of it, but also because the type of retreats that Evelyn helps people create are the same types of retreat or in-person components that I help people to do in their group programs. So it seemed like the right conversation to have. And so we wanted to talk in this conversation, kind of a grounding part, talking about like, why would people consider retreats? And also, why now? Like, why is there something in the air right now about retreats and people wanting them? And so I'm curious, Evelyn, like, with the work that you do and the conversations that you have and kind of what you're seeing out there, why are retreats a big thing right now?
It's a number of reasons. So first of all, I think the pandemic plays a pretty big role. So when COVID started, it was like we just were all immediately online with all our work. And we were all very, very uncomfortable with that, right? We all kind of hated that. Like we missed being together. We saw our kids were being their like hours on online for school and that kind of thing. And our work moved online and our client interaction moved online. And that became really normalized. Um, and then at some point, we kind of just stayed there. So even though we didn't have to be there, we just stayed there. And we kind of forgot how horrified we had been. Because it should be really obvious that online versus in-person connection is just not the same. That you just cannot have as deep a connection with a person on a screen. That there are things that happen in person that are magical that will never happen on Zoom. Um, and so that timing, I think, definitely plays a role. Um, And the other thing is that right now, I don't know what it is. The world just gets busier and busier all the time. So our daily lives are just saturated with all kinds of tasks and details because everybody's really just overworked. Everybody just has too much to do. Um, and so to step away from all of it, both in physical distance, um, and just, mental disconnection as well, emotional disconnection is really, really powerful. Um, because even if you had, let's say, an in-person event close to your home or something, and it was just one day, it's not the same because you're still very, very close in proximity to your life. And so the ability to just step away from your daily routine, um, hopefully step away from your devices, your digital devices and digital connection, that that's huge. Um, and then finally, I'll just add that there's a lot of loneliness happening. A lot of people are just craving deeper human connection, deeper relationships, um, friendships, confidants, allies, all kinds of types of relationships. And when you go on a retreat and you can be with the people who kind of get you, they understand what you're going through. You all are there because you have something in common. And so you're really able to connect with new people and form those relationships in that safe place where you're completely like disconnected from your home. So um, I hope I'm explaining that well.
Hmm.
It's just, you're just setting yourself up to create those relationships and to really solidify them.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing I would add too is the sense of novelty, right? It's because it's new. It's because we're out of our usual things, our usual habits, our usual ways of being, that novelty helps to create connection, right? And
Yes.
and we're saying all this as if it's like automatically guaranteed that it happens, and that's not true, right? Like
Right.
it is in part because that is the purpose behind the retreat as well, right? There's planning that needs to go on, both from a logistic standpoint, but also from a how do I help support this and create these opportunities for connection. And so there is that piece of it too, is there's an intentionality that happens with a retreat that the group leader has a role in. But then also there is something about the commitment that people make when they say yes, especially when, to your point, I'm going to travel abroad, right? I'm getting on a plane, I'm going over some body of water,
Yes.
and I'm doing that because I want a novel experience, because I want to have this depth with other people and experience something new and different and be
Yeah.
open to kind of what that creates.
Yeah, yeah. And I would add to that, when we're talking about retreats abroad specifically, so evidently a retreat abroad is going to be more expensive. There are greater costs involved in that. And it's sort of like a greater cost emotionally because you're going so far from home, you're going into a different culture that's going to present a challenge. And so when somebody says yes to something like that, you know that that person's really, really invested. So the person who has invested their time and energy and money, they're invested in whatever transformation that they're seeking. And so they're going to come ready and open to do that work and to receive the guidance and put it into action. So, that for me is a little bit the magic of international retreats specifically because it creates that like extra layer of investment.
I think that's a great point, right? It's kind of them saying, yes, I'm committed to this experience, whatever it is, whatever I think it's going to be, and I'm willing to do it, and I'm willing to like try it out because
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that someone experiences just to get there, never mind once they're there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely
And
the
it,
journey.
it's it's funny because when I think about retreats, I still think that they're groups, right? Like my definition of groups is broad in that respect, but it's groups that are in an intentional, and then I say often beautiful location, because most times there's there's a decision that gets made about the location that
Yeah.
supports the transformation, or in my language, the program promise, which is what we promise people
Mm,
will accomplish and or experience in the program. And so the locale is part of that decision in terms of
yeah,
what supports that.
definitely.
Yeah. And when people come to kind of work with you and talk to you about retreats, do they often recognize that like kind of what the retreat is, or do you find that part of what you're helping them with is to understand all the decisions and kind of the impact that those decisions have?
As far as the location, I do think I feel like I do need to kind of explain that a little bit and walk through those possibilities because I think most people have maybe kind of only one idea or one general idea of about retreat location and what that involves. Um, but like you said, depending on the transformation or program promise that that leader is going for, there are a number of possibilities. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Um, and for me specifically, like a lot of people have in mind a remote location, um, nature, and probably doing yoga on a wooden deck or something like that, which is all great. Like those are all wonderful things. Um, but that's also very like safe, it's like rather neutral. And if that's what you want and need, that's fine. Um, but if somebody comes in and then there's an element of challenge already just in the location, as in it's a different culture. These are totally new things. I've never seen this before. I've never seen these kinds of architecture before. I've never heard that language before, or certainly haven't heard it spoken that way before. Um, all these different things that just make you go, that just make you stop, that to me is like, can play a really big role in the challenge element of the retreat. Um, and that can be definitely used to the advantage of the group leader and the group itself. So I just like to paint that picture for people as well, especially when we're talking about retreats abroad. That um, if you're going to like Bali or something. I mean, I've never been to Bali, so I guess I can't really speak to this. But uh, some people like to go to really exotic locations. Um, but it's not about being in that culture per se. It's about being in like that nature or like that specific natural environment. Um, but it's not necessarily like a culturally different place that's going to challenge you in that way that I was just describing. So yeah, I like to talk about all those different possibilities. And for me, the retreats that I like to plan, um, I always want to have some element of cultural immersion, and you can kind of have both, right? So there are locations that are close enough to a big city, close enough to where you're going to really find people, because you can't have culture without people.
Yes.
so so you have to be near the people. Um, so there are locations that provide that like restfulness in nature, yet they still are in close proximity to where you can really be among the people of that place and experience what the way that they live and some of their traditions and really learn from that as well.
And I think part of what I've really appreciated when I have been talking to you is the widening of what a retreat is, right? Because I'm with you. There's a whole industry on, yoga, detox, healthy food, you know, and listen, sign me up. Like that, like I get the appeal of it. And yet, there is this opportunity to kind of say, well, if you're gonna be somewhere anyway, why not have the city, the town, the country that you're in play a prominent role in the experience itself, right? If you're gonna go all that way,
Yeah.
why not tap into it a little bit, right? At least a little bit. When you're kind of talking to people and working with them to figure that out, is there certain things that they need to already know before they kind of start really having a conversation with you? Or is it like, ooh, I have I think I want to retreat, and that's where the conversation starts?
I think the conversation can start there. And anyway, I love talking about it. So just starting to think about it is plenty, because there's so much to talk about, and um, there's so many possibilities. Um, and if a person is just starting to think about it, um, and maybe it's not clear on when that might happen, that's actually the best moment to start talking about it, because there are certain things that, yeah, you should probably have maybe in place before you really start to move forward. Um, and then other things, not necessarily. So, and then you can kind of, we can already start talking about potential pricing and things like that and possibilities. Um, and so I think it's never too early to start talking about that possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way in the sense of, that first part is that program promise. Like what is the intention behind this? And yes, I want to have a retreat. Great. And, in order to what is a question I'll often kind
Yes,
of ask. And then
definitely.
knowing that, every other decision becomes clearer and easier, right? Once you
Yeah.
know that program promise, then that idea of, well, what is the location that supports that best?
Yes,
What does that look like, and how do we add experiences to that to support that
definitely.
program promise? Yeah, very cool. Is there anything else you think people need to kind of know about when it comes to like why retreats are appealing and why retreats are something to consider if you are a coach or a consultant or an author or an expert?
Well, two things. One is that retreats are becoming more popular. So it's a little bit of a uh, demand thing, right? So we're still in the phase where it's a relatively unique offer. Um, and yet, if you look at like data for travel and like international travel, and also wellness travel in general, it's just going up and up and up. So people are definitely really interested in that type of travel. They want to be traveling for transformative purposes and not just to go like check something off of their bucket list. Um, and so anyway, the point is that right now is a good time to kind of get in on it, before it gets too popular. Um, and the second thing I want to mention was that this idea that a lot of coaches are out there with online only programs, um, and they're at a point in their business where maybe they're doing really, really well, and they want to continue scaling their income, which is great. Uh, but when you continue to need to scale or want to scale income, there's really no way that you can do it without actually decreasing the actual connection you have with your client, because there's only so much of you, right, as the coach. So if you already have, several clients and things are going really well, um, a retreat is actually one way to add income, a healthy amount of it, within a relatively short amount of time, but the connection level with your client is optimal. Like it's the most that it could ever be. So instead of feeling like you need to scale by taking yourself out of it, by offering the pre-recorded thing instead, or by offering, um, I don't know, like a course that you barely show up. that you outsource a bunch of it, that kind of thing. So instead of going that route to earn your extra money, if you're going to a retreat, there's so many other benefits. It's just the relationships that are going to form, the trust that you're going to gain from your clients, the trip itself, which is going to probably be amazing, all these things. And plus, it can also be really, really profitable. So for me, it's like a totally a win-win. You can scale your business and scale your income by increasing connection time and depth with your clients instead of decreasing. So that's a big advantage to me.
And I think it, we were talking before we started recording about like the times where you and I are talking, and I know for me sometimes I'm like, I'm so counterculture, right? Like everything I'm talking about is the opposite. And this is one of those things, right? Where it's like to scale, to do all this kind of stuff, we have to play this, we believe we have to play this quantity quality game where it's
Mhm.
like, okay, I need to increase the quantity, so therefore I have to decrease the quality. And what you're saying
Yes,
there is like, actually, there's a quality game here that you can play.
absolutely.
And it's one of the reasons why I love the idea of a retreat, like an in-person retreat component as part of a group, because then you're taking something that already is profitable for you, that's already
Mhm.
working, and you're saying, with a little extra time and obviously resources, right? There's this increase in the quality, the
Mhm.
experience. I think
Mhm.
about that you can have that in person kind of anywhere from it, but it's like one obvious place is when you start the group, right? You start the cohort. And so you now
Yeah.
have people coming together for a number of days, they're connecting. Now, suddenly, that online part that comes afterwards has a very different feel because you've connected, you have shared experiences,
Yes.
you've been in each other's, energy. And so
Yes.
now suddenly how you're showing up in that group is really different, as well as kind of an ending, right? So whether
Mhm.
it's both or instead of, so you've done all this work, you've made all this transformation, and then you get to come together and really celebrate it and just
Mhm.
acknowledge the support that everybody gave and all the things that happened. Like it's such a impactful and memorable way to close out that group. And
Yeah.
again, it's like what connection kind of continues after the fact. So I just love that you're bringing up that it's like this quality quantity thing. There's a different way to look at it, and it's without necessarily having to like give up profit. It's actually a way to
Mhm.
build more in.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. Well, Evelyn, thank you so much for having this first conversation. We have a few more that we're going to do where we're going to talk
Yes.
about things like what are some of the parts of retreats that like drain leaders, that kind of make it that never again will I do this retreat
Mhm.
experience, because that is what some people experience. And so we're going to talk through kind of what are some design elements, but then also what does support look like, and what
Yeah.
can you get the location to do for you, and what can you do to
Yeah.
get support. And then we're also going to kind of end it with, you know, what happens now? Like, what does the planning and support really look like? And how do we create retreats that feel good for everybody, including ourselves? So I'm looking forward to
Awesome.
having that conversation with you, and we hope you'll check out the other videos.
Excellent. Thanks, Carrie.